If you've ever fought hard to quit an addictive or compulsive behavior, or you're deep in that fight right now, believing that once you finally get this one under control, you'll be free, here's something that should worry you. Most people who succeed at stopping one addiction end up picking up another one, often worse than the first one. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why that happens. And the one thing that decides whether you spend your life getting better and better at managing whatever comes next, or you actually fix what's causing it all. Hi, my name is Mina, and I'm a guide who specializes in helping people recover from addictive and compulsive behavior for good, not just for now. You might be wondering why you should listen to me. And that's a fair question, to be honest. Uh, well, I have spent the last 5 years studying this pattern full time. Not from behind the desk, but because I lived it personally. I built real academic, professional, and social success along the way. The kind that's supposed to mean you've got it together, and I still watch the same cycle pull me back in, no matter what I threw at it. And believe me, I threw everything at it: religion, science based courses, 12 steps, programs, and meetings, philosophy, all the new. Well, to be honest, each one helped a little, but none of them fixed it until I found the actual route, tested it on myself, and spent years refining it into the theoretical and practical framework this program is built on. What you are about to hear isn't a theory I read somewhere. It is what actually worked. Here's the first thing you need to understand, and it is the piece almost everyone gets wrong. Your addictive behavior isn't the disease. It's a symptom of something much bigger, something that has nothing to do with alcohol or gambling or food or whatever your specific behavior happens to be. Think of it like sneezing. You can't suppress a sneeze. Medicate it, distract yourself from it, but if the flu underneath is still there, it's going to find another way out, like chest congestion, a cough, a fever. You didn't cure anything, you just relocated the symptom from one place to another. Addiction works the same way. And I know part of you already knows this because you've probably felt it yourself. You get one thing under control, something else quietly tightens its grip somewhere else in your life. So, well, you might ask, what is the actual disease then? Well, I call it the reactive way of living. From the day we're born till the day we die, we're all chasing the same thing: happiness. Some of us chase it through relationships, some through money, some through career or creativity or travel. Doesn't matter really what it is for you. However, here's the catch: every single one of those things is a condition, a result, an outcome. And conditions, by their very nature, are things we don't actually control. I'm not saying effort is pointless. Of course it isn't. Having goals and working toward them is not the problem. The problem is that even when the effort pays off and you have achieved your goals, your happiness, your contentment is attached to and dependent on that outcome and condition in the first place. And honestly, that's no way to live, like for anyone, to be honest. A slave to external outcomes and conditions that are ultimately out of your hands. That is, my friend, the reactive way of living, chasing one condition after another, hoping the next one finally settles you, and underneath it, constantly reacting to fear, insecurity, and lag instead of acting from a free, true, independent desire. Now, here's where the addictive act comes in. Some part of you knows your happiness is hostage to things you can't quite control, and that is, at least subconsciously, unbearable to sit with. So, the second an outcome you care about doesn't go your way, or even looks like it might not, that unbearable feeling shows up and needs to go right now, not eventually, now. And the addictive act is just the fastest tool available to make it disappear. How? By handing you a real jolt of pleasure. Something that is in the moment actually does feel good and feels like a relief. But notice, that relief never actually fixed anything. And here's the part I need you to catch because it's easy to miss. The pleasure itself was never the problem. Pleasure is not the problem. The problem is what you asked it to do. You handed it a job it was never built for. That is, make you feel in control of conditions that were never yours to control in the first place. Which is exactly why the specific addiction doesn't matter. It was never really about the drink, the drug, that behavior itself. It was just always whichever tool was most convenient, sedating, and closest at hand. And that brings me to the second thing, the part almost nobody explains, and the actual reason you're watching this video. If the addictive act is just a tool for making an unbearable feeling disappear, think about what happens when you take the tool away without touching what's underneath. Well, as you might have guessed, the feeling doesn't leave. It's still there, still needing somewhere to go. So your mind almost automatically goes looking for a new tool. And here's what should genuinely concern you, the replacement is very often worse than the original. Not slightly worse, but worse in ways that are easy to miss until you're already deep in. There isn't just one reason for that, there are several, and I want to walk you through all of them. But before we get into that, I just want to say something really quick. If what I just described is hitting close to home, I want you to know there's a way out of this. That doesn't involve playing an endless game of whack-a-mole with your own behavior. I'll show you exactly how in a minute. But if you'd rather not wait, there's a link below to a consultation form where we can talk about whether this program is the right fit for you. No pressure, just an option in case you already know you're ready. Now let's get back to the reasons why the new addictive behavior is more often than not a more vicious one, unfortunately much more than the one you started with. Well, the first reason is mechanical. Most of the addictions people swap into aren't drug based. They're built on something your body already does naturally, or something completely normal and neutral that's already woven into your daily life, like eating, sexuality, sexual behavior, screens, caffeine, and even work itself. Because those things are natural or seemingly neutral, they're dramatically harder to isolate and stop than something your body and your environment can naturally treat as foreign, like alcohol or drugs. You can throw out a bottle, but you can't throw out food or your phone or your own body out of your life. But it doesn't always go that direction. Sometimes the new addiction is substance based too, and that's dangerous for a completely different reason. Having beaten one addiction, a part of you quietly starts to believe you're no longer the kind of person who gets addicted. That belief is exactly what lowers your guard around a substance you'd normally have been careful with. The false confidence of having already solved your addiction becomes the very thing that lets a new one in. The second reason is the new addiction rarely stays contained to one area of your life, the way the first one might have. It tends to bleed into everything, your work, your relationships, your sense of who you are, because the pattern generating it was never contained to one area to begin with. It just looked that way while it was still wearing its first costume. The third reason, and this one is more painful to say out loud, honestly, that there is a real despair that comes with all of this. You did the hard part. You actually quit something, and then you look up one day and realize you're caught in almost the same exact trap, just wearing a different face. And this time you don't know how to get out because you thought you already had. From what I've seen and heard, that's not a small emotional hit. And that hopelessness doesn't just sit there quietly. It becomes its own fuel for the cycle. Because now, underneath the addiction, there's an even heavier feeling that needs numbing. That is the fear that maybe you're just never going to be free of this. The fourth reason, and this a subtle one actually, the one that can make the second addiction the most dangerous of all, precisely because it looks the least dangerous. When the new behavior has fewer immediate, visible consequences than the one you already quit, say you swap heavy drinking for compulsive eating or for quietly overworking yourself into the ground, it stops feeling urgent. Nobody's telling you to get help. Nothing is visibly falling apart. And because it doesn't feel urgent, you don't treat it with the seriousness it deserves. So it's allowed to run for years instead of months, doing more cumulative damage to your health, your relationships, your own sense of self than the addiction you actually managed to quit ever did. So the new addiction doesn't just replace the old one, it embeds itself on every one of these levels at once. Just think this is who you are now, maybe even a healthier version of you, since you finally quit the real problem. You've probably seen this yourself, even without a name for it. Someone quits drinking and picks up compulsive eating. Someone gets their gambling under control and ends up completely consumed by trading charged at 2 in the morning. Someone finally kicks a drug habit and ends up with a new one, or it quietly becomes pornography or the gym or work itself dressed up as finally getting my life together. Well, different custom, same actor underneath. And here's the part I really need you to hear. You didn't walk out of the cage. You just walked into a smaller one, dressed up to look like freedom. If that's already happening to you, you finally beat one thing and now there's a new behavior you can't quite explain, that you can't quite stop, that feels less bad but somehow just as compulsive, I need you to know that's not a coincidence. It's not a personal failure. And of course, it is not your fault. That's exactly what happens when you treat the symptom and leave the root fully intact. Which brings me to the third thing you need to understand. The real solution here was never going to be find a healthier addiction or get better at managing whatever comes next. Any solution that leaves your happiness hostage to outside conditions is going to eventually bring you back to some version of the addictive act. It will just wear a different face next time. Now, some part of you might resist this. It's a lot easier to believe you just need a better strategy, a stronger accountability system, more willpower this time. I get it. That's what I believed too, for a long time. But the cage was never the specific addiction. The cage is the link itself, the link between your happiness and your life conditions. And as long as that link is intact, you can change what's inside the cage as many times as you want, but you're still in the cage. The actual solution is to break that link, not to manage it more skillfully, break it. I call the way of living on the other side of that shift the active way of living. Active here doesn't mean busy or productive or doing more things. It means acting from internal choice instead of external pressure. It means your peace is no longer waiting on the outcome of anything. Putting it simply, to live actively is to enjoy everything the world has to offer pleasure, connection, achievement, all of it without being enslaved to any of them. You no longer need any of it to feel whole and content. You act because you want to, not because some fear or lack underneath is driving you to. Isn't that the actual freedom you were looking for the whole time? Not one more addiction successfully managed, but nothing left to manage at all. And this is why willpower, accountability chickens, and standard behavior management approaches struggle so much with swapping addiction specifically. They're built to fight one behavior at a time. And honestly, it's almost funny in a sad kind of way how many separate rooms a person can end up cycling through for what looks like different problems. One for the drinking, another for the eating, another for the gambling, as if each one were its own disease, needing its own fix with no thread connecting any of them. But the reactive pattern generating the behavior doesn't care which specific behavior you're currently managing. It'll just find the next unguarded door. You can win every individual battle and still be losing the actual war for years without ever quite realizing it. So, the last part of this video, and this is the part that actually matters most. How do you do this? Here's the rule underneath everything. It's mainly by changing your mental behavior that you change your physical behavior. Your thoughts are the actual cause of your decisions, your feelings, and your actions, not the other way around. Here's a very simple example. The way you interpret a situation as threatening or neutral, as a crisis or just information, determines your entire reaction and response to it. Two people can face the exact same outcome and walk away with completely different emotional states, purely based on what they told themselves it meant. It's all in the meaning, you see. So the real work is learning to think. Constantly, gradually, practice like any skill and from a new center. Not the old restless, fearful, insecure one that's been driving your addictive cycle, but rather a calm, whole, and content one, where you're not trying to fix or fill some lack in yourself because you no longer experience a lack there to fix. I won't pretend this happens in a single decision or a single video. It's a gradual process. There's no way around this, like anything worth building, but it is learnable. And in my experience, it is the only approach that actually resolves addictive behavior. And instead of just managing it more skillfully, more cleverly, once that shift takes root, you stop needing a next addiction to make it through the day. Because that thing, all your addictive behaviors we're trying to solve, simply isn't there to solve anymore. Not managed better, gone. I know how that sounds almost too good to be true, to be believable, and I get why part of you might be raising an eyebrow at it right now, and that's understandable. But if a bigger force in you is drawn and ready to actually do this, instead of spending years getting better and better at managing whatever your next version of addictive and destructive behavior looks like, that's exactly what this program is built for. It is a live cohort based curriculum, not a single video's worth of tips, but a full guided process for making this shift real and firmly established in your life, not just understood in theory. There's a link in the description to the consultation form if you want to see whether it's the right fit for you. The first cohort is limited to a small group, somewhere between 10 to 15 people. So if you are interested, I'd reach out sooner rather than later. Just something to note, not trying to push or pressure you in any way. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If this helped you, even a little, consider subscribing so you catch the next one. And please leave me a comment below. I'd genuinely love to know what part of this landed for you. Or if you've noticed this swapping pattern in your own life. Don't worry if you're not sure what to do with everything you just heard. No effort is wasted. It's okay, it's normal. It took me years to work through all of this myself. I leave you with this. Just do the heist you know for the time being. Just do the heist you know for the time being. That's really, if you thought about it for a bit, your only responsibility right now. Well, have a good one and salut!